What would you do if a flight attendant treated you unfairly, and you had the power to change the situation in an instant? Imagine this. You're seated in first class, surrounded by luxury. The scent of gourmet meals wafts through the air, and the soothing sounds of the plane hum softly. Suddenly, you're kicked off the plane. How would you react? Would you be outraged? Would you take immediate action? Or would you feel helpless in that moment? Now, picture this. What if the person being treated unfairly was not just any passenger, but a billionaire? A person with the means to turn the tables and make a powerful statement. What happens when a small mistake leads to a dramatic confrontation? How would the flight attendant feel when they realize who they were dealing with? Would their attitude change if they knew the truth? In this video, we're diving deep into an incredible story that highlights the clash between power and prejudice. You'll learn about the shocking events that unfolded when a flight attendant made a crucial mistake that altered the course of an ordinary flight. This isn't just a story of revenge. It's about justice, respect, and the consequences of one's actions. As we journey through this narrative, we'll uncover lesser-known facts about the airline industry, like how often discrimination occurs and the impact it has on those involved. You'll see how power dynamics can shift dramatically and why it's important to stand up against injustice, no matter who you are. But why should you stay until the end? Because this story has unexpected twists that will keep you glued to your screen. You'll witness a transformation as the billionaire turns his frustration into a clever strategy that sends ripples throughout the airline industry. You'll discover how he leveraged his influence not only to seek personal satisfaction, but to highlight a significant issue that affects many. We'll explore the emotional weight carried by our billionaire and the flight attendant, capturing their inner struggles and motivations. How do they deal with their feelings of anger and humiliation? What lessons can we learn from this intense encounter? So buckle up. Get ready for a roller coaster of emotions, from disbelief to satisfaction. By the end of this video, you'll not only have experienced an astonishing tale of revenge, but also gained insight into the importance of respect and accountability in every situation. Are you ready to find out what happens when a flight attendant crosses paths with a billionaire? Let's dive into this gripping story. As the plane soared high above the clouds, the sun poured its golden light through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the luxurious first-class cabin. Each seat was a cocoon of comfort, draped in plush fabric and equipped with all the amenities that money could buy. Among the well-heeled passengers was Marcus Thompson, a prominent billionaire known for his success in tech. His sharp mind and keen business acumen had earned him a spot on the Forbes list. But today, he was simply a man ready to relax on a long-awaited flight to New York City. Marcus settled into his seat, a sense of anticipation coursing through him. He had just closed a major deal that promised to expand his business into new territories. The excitement of success buzzed in his veins, and he felt confident and invincible. As he glanced around the cabin, he took note of the other passengers, wealthy individuals dressed in tailored suits, chatting excitedly about their own affairs. They were all part of a world that thrived on power, prestige, and connections. In the midst of this elite crowd was Angela, a young flight attendant with aspirations of her own. She had worked tirelessly to land this job, hoping it would be her stepping stone to a successful career in hospitality. Yet, despite her ambitions, Angela felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was determined to give every passenger the best service possible, but the pressure was immense. Today, she was serving a cabin full of high-profile individuals, and her every move was scrutinized. As the flight began, Angela zipped down the aisle with a smile, ready to offer drinks and snacks. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and nerves. She had heard stories about demanding passengers, but she hoped today would be smooth sailing. She approached Marcus's seat, her mind focused on providing the best service she could muster. "Good afternoon, sir. Would you like something to drink?" she asked, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her stomach. Marcus smiled, his confidence radiating. "I'll have a glass of your finest champagne, please," he replied, enjoying the moment. He glanced at Angela, noticing her nervous demeanor. He appreciated her effort and gave her an encouraging nod. But as the flight continued, tensions began to simmer. The cabin grew restless, with several passengers requesting more attention. Angela rushed to fulfill the needs of her guests, trying to balance their demands while keeping the atmosphere pleasant. It was challenging, but she was determined to keep everyone satisfied. However, a small mishap would soon set the stage for a confrontation. As she hurried down the aisle, she accidentally bumped into Marcus's arm while delivering a tray of drinks. "I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "I didn't mean to." Before she could finish her sentence, Marcus snapped, "You need to be more careful. Do you have any idea who I am?" His voice carried a sharp edge, and the tension in the air shifted dramatically. Other passengers turned their heads, intrigued by the sudden clash. Angela felt a rush of humiliation wash over her. She had been nothing but polite and professional, yet here she was, being reprimanded in front of others. "I apologize, sir. I'll be more careful," she said, her voice tinged with hurt, trying to maintain her composure. But Marcus was not finished. The indignation bubbling within him overshadowed any consideration for the woman standing before him. "You should treat all your passengers with respect. This is unacceptable," he fired back, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of the nearby passengers. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted as murmurs began to ripple through the first class. Some passengers exchanged glances, whispering about the encounter. It was a rare moment of drama unfolding among the elite, and everyone wanted to see how it would play out. Angela felt the eyes of her fellow passengers piercing her. She stood there, frozen for a moment, fighting back tears. How could this happen? She had dedicated herself to this job, and now she felt small and powerless. Yet she knew that she had to stand her ground. "I am doing my best, sir. I'm here to serve you, and I will make sure it doesn't happen again," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Your best isn't good enough," Marcus replied coldly, dismissing her. The gravity of his words hung in the air like a thundercloud. It was a moment that would change everything. With that, he stood up, signaling that he was done with the conversation. Angela, feeling defeated, turned away, her heart heavy with disappointment. She wanted to retreat, to hide from the judgment of the other passengers, but there was no escaping it now. Just as Marcus was about to return to his seat, he made a sudden decision. "You know what? I don't want to be served by someone who can't even do their job right. I want you to remove me from this flight," he declared, the boldness of his statement sending shockwaves through the cabin. Angela's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sir, please," she began, but he cut her off. "Call your supervisor," he insisted, his voice firm. "I want to speak to someone who understands how to treat their customers." The demands of a billionaire were often taken seriously, and this was no exception. Angela felt the pressure mounting as her supervisor approached. The tension in the air was palpable, and all eyes were on them. The supervisor, a seasoned professional, quickly assessed the situation. She could see that Angela was flustered, and Marcus's demeanor left no room for negotiation. As the supervisor engaged with Marcus, the cabin fell silent, waiting to see how this confrontation would resolve. The drama unfolded like a scene from a movie, where the protagonist faces a formidable opponent. And in this moment, both Angela and Marcus stood as representatives of their respective worlds, one a hopeful servant, and the other a powerful billionaire. "Sir, I understand your frustration," the supervisor said, trying to diffuse the situation. "But let's find a way to resolve this. It's a long flight, and I want you to be comfortable." Marcus smirked, reveling in the attention. "Comfort is not just about a seat. It's about respect. And right now, I'm not feeling respected at all," he replied, his voice steady, but the anger simmered just below the surface. Angela stood to the side, feeling like a spectator in her own life. The humiliation clawed at her. She thought about all the hard work she had put into her career, and here she was, being reduced to a mere inconvenience. But even as her heart raced with anger and shame, a seed of determination began to grow inside her. The back and forth continued, and the drama intensified. Passengers murmured among themselves, some supporting Marcus and others sympathizing with Angela. The cabin had transformed into an arena, and everyone was eager to see who would come out on top. As the confrontation escalated, Angela realized that she needed to make a choice. Would she let this incident define her career, or would she stand up for herself? In that moment, she felt the weight of her dreams pressing down on her. She had worked too hard to let one encounter derail her. While Marcus relished the chaos he had created, he remained unaware of the transformation occurring in Angela. The very flight attendant he had dismissed was beginning to find her voice. She understood the stakes now and felt an unshakable resolve rise within her. What neither of them knew was that this encounter would lead to an unexpected climax. As the tension reached a boiling point, the question remained: how far would each of them go to assert their power? And what consequences would they face for their actions? The answers to these questions would unfold in ways neither of them could have anticipated, setting the stage for a dramatic twist that would change everything. The flight had just begun, but the story was only getting started. As the flight continued its ascent, the tension in the cabin was palpable. The sky outside was painted in hues of blue and gold, a serene contrast to the chaos brewing within the aircraft. Passengers whispered among themselves, their curiosity piqued by the escalating confrontation between Marcus and Angela. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as everyone awaited the next move. Marcus, fueled by indignation, returned to his seat. He crossed his arms, staring out the window, trying to calm the storm inside him. The beauty of the clouds rolling by did little to soothe his anger. All he could think about was how he had been disrespected by a mere flight attendant. It gnawed at him. Meanwhile, Angela stood frozen in place, heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the eyes on her, each gaze filled with judgment. How could a moment of unintentional clumsiness escalate into such a public spectacle? She could hardly believe it was happening. In her mind, she replayed the moment over and over, searching for what she could have done differently. Suddenly, the supervisor, a composed woman named Carol, approached Marcus again. "Sir, I understand your frustration. I want to ensure you have a pleasant flight," she said, her tone calm but authoritative. Marcus turned, his expression hardening. "I don't want to talk to you. I want to be treated with respect, and that starts with getting rid of her." He gestured towards Angela, his words dripping with contempt. Carol took a deep breath, trying to maintain her professionalism. "I understand that you're upset, but Angela is a valued member of our team, and I assure you she will do her best to provide excellent service. Let's try to move past this." The cabin held its breath. The way Marcus glared at Angela, it was clear that he had no intention of letting this go. "I don't care about her excellent service. I want her off this flight. This is my last warning." His voice was cold, leaving no room for negotiation. Angela felt her stomach drop. She had been preparing for a busy flight, not a battle for her job. The idea of being removed from the flight, of being humiliated even further, sent a shiver down her spine. But deep inside her, a flicker of defiance ignited. How could he do this? In that moment, she made a choice. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the fear swirling in her gut, "I believe everyone deserves respect, including me. I made a mistake, and I apologized. But I won't let you bully me." The gasps from the surrounding passengers echoed like a clap of thunder. Marcus's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't expected this response. "You think you can stand up to me?" he asked, incredulous. "Do you even know who I am?" "I know you're a passenger on this flight, just like everyone else," Angela replied, her heart racing. "You might have money, but that doesn't give you the right to treat people poorly." The tension in the cabin skyrocketed. People were now leaning in, eager to see how this standoff would play out. Marcus's expression hardened, and for a moment, silence enveloped the room. The atmosphere shifted as the power dynamics changed. But Marcus was not about to back down. "You have no idea what you're getting into. This isn't just about you. It's about the service I expect. I demand a refund for my ticket, and I want her removed from the flight." His voice boomed, commanding attention. Angela felt her pulse quicken. The stakes were high, and she was standing her ground against a man who held power. "I can't just leave my post. I have a job to do, and I intend to do it. You can speak to the captain if you want." The drama unfolded like a scene from a gripping movie. The other passengers watched in rapt attention, some pulling out their phones to record the moment. The confrontation was now not just a personal battle. It had transformed into a spectacle. Carol, sensing the urgency of the situation, interjected, "Marcus, I truly believe we can resolve this without further escalation. Let's focus on enjoying the rest of the flight." But Marcus, fueled by his wounded pride, was unwilling to relent. "You'll regret this," he warned Angela, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "I have connections, and I will make sure you pay for this." A chill ran down Angela's spine at his words. She had heard about wealthy individuals using their influence to punish those who dared to cross them. But something inside her screamed to resist. "You can't intimidate me, Marcus," she said firmly. "I will not back down." The tension reached a fever pitch. Marcus glanced around, assessing the other passengers' reactions. Some appeared uncomfortable, while others seemed to revel in the drama. "Fine," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's see how this plays out." He leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, as if waiting for the inevitable. Angela could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She was in uncharted territory, standing firm against a formidable opponent. She quickly resumed her duties, but her mind was racing. How could she handle this situation? As the flight progressed, the atmosphere shifted. The incident had already created a divide among the passengers. Some whispered their support for Marcus, while others felt for Angela, applauding her bravery. The tension remained palpable, each moment feeling like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. 20 minutes passed, and the flight crew continued to serve the other passengers, trying to create a sense of normalcy. But the tension in the air felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Angela's heart raced as she approached Marcus's seat again, determined to show her professionalism despite the hostility. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. Marcus looked up, an icy smirk spreading across his face. "Yes, you can get me a new flight attendant. Someone who knows how to do their job without causing a scene." The laughter from nearby passengers echoed in the cabin. Angela felt her face flush with humiliation, but she refused to let it show. "I will do my best to make this flight as comfortable as possible for you," she replied, maintaining her composure. But as she turned away, the laughter continued. Marcus's arrogance seemed to amplify the humiliation she felt. It was clear that he was enjoying this game. His presence loomed large, a reminder of the power he wielded. Yet, in the quiet moments, when the chaos faded to a dull hum, Angela found herself reflecting on her worth. She had come so far in her career, enduring challenges and proving herself time and again. This confrontation felt like a test, a moment that could define her future. As she navigated the aisles, she could sense the shifting energy among the passengers. The tension was still thick, but there were whispers of support for her. A few passengers even shared knowing glances, as if to say they understood what she was going through. Then, the unexpected happened. A passenger who had been sitting quietly until now finally spoke up. "Hey, Marcus," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Do you really think it's fair to treat her like this? She's just doing her job." The cabin fell silent again, all eyes on Marcus. He bristled at the unexpected challenge, his expression shifting from arrogance to irritation. "This isn't about fairness. It's about respect. And she doesn't deserve it." The passenger, a middle-aged man in a tailored suit, continued, "You may have money, but that doesn't make you better than anyone else. We all deserve respect, including the staff who serve us." The murmurs of agreement echoed around the cabin. It was a turning point, a united front forming against Marcus's tyranny. Angela felt a surge of hope, bolstered by the support of her fellow passengers. Realizing he was losing ground, Marcus's eyes narrowed, and he snapped back, "You don't know what you're talking about." But the atmosphere had changed. Angela had found her voice, and now she had allies. It was a shift she hadn't expected, and it emboldened her. As the flight continued, the dynamic had transformed. Marcus was now on the defensive, his earlier confidence fading. Angela, buoyed by the support around her, felt a newfound strength. This moment had ignited something within her, a determination to stand tall in the face of adversity. But just as things seemed to calm, Marcus, refusing to let go of his grudge, picked up his phone. The click of the buttons echoed in the cabin, and Angela's heart raced. What was he planning? Who would he call? "Just wait," he muttered, a glint of malice in his eyes. "You'll see what happens when you cross me." The suspense hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Angela felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of revenge did he have in store? She had to be prepared for whatever came next. As the airplane soared through the clouds, a palpable tension hung in the air. The incident had shocked everyone, but the reactions varied. While some passengers whispered their support for Angela, others couldn't help but feel intrigued by Marcus's story. A sense of uncertainty filled the cabin, and it was clear that the dynamic had shifted dramatically. Marcus, ill seething, leaned back in his seat with arms crossed, his expression darkening. He could sense the changing tides and the murmurs of discontent surrounding him. The whispers were everywhere, echoing in his mind like an unsettling soundtrack. He had never experienced such defiance from a flight attendant, especially one who seemed so committed to standing her ground. In his world, money usually dictated respect, and he was not used to being challenged. As he fumed, he pulled out his phone again, furiously typing away. It was clear he was concocting a plan, one that would not only address the incident, but also serve as a lesson to everyone who dared cross him. He had spent years building his reputation, and he wouldn't let a minor confrontation tarnish it. Meanwhile, Angela was busy attending to other passengers, her heart still racing from the earlier confrontation. Each time she glanced towards Marcus, a wave of anxiety washed over her. She could feel the weight of his glare, as if he were plotting some grand revenge. She wondered what his next move would be, and if she had made a grave mistake by standing up to him. As she delivered drinks and snacks, the supportive passengers offered her nods and smiles, silently reassuring her. It was a small comfort amidst the storm brewing just a few rows away. Their encouragement reminded her that she wasn't alone in this fight. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus was not done with her yet. After some time, Marcus finally received a response on his phone. He smirked, glancing around the cabin to gauge the reactions. His fingers danced over the screen as he typed back with a renewed sense of confidence. The passengers around him began to notice, whispering among themselves, trying to figure out what was happening. "Who's he texting?" someone asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but it can't be good," another replied, glancing nervously at Marcus. As the minutes passed, the situation in the cabin grew more tense. The flight attendants continued to serve drinks, but the mood had shifted. The laughter and chatter that filled the space before had faded, replaced by an uneasy quiet. Everyone could sense that Marcus was plotting something, and the tension became almost suffocating. Angela caught wind of the shifting atmosphere and felt a pit form in her stomach. Was he contacting someone powerful? Did he have the means to make her life difficult? She fought to keep her composure, reminding herself that she had done nothing wrong. Standing up to a bully should never lead to consequences. But the fear crept in. What if he reached out to the airline's higher-ups? What if he threatened to pull strings, using his wealth and influence to ruin her? She couldn't let those thoughts consume her. She had to stay strong. As the flight progressed, the cabin lights dimmed, creating an ambience of calm amidst the chaos. But in the back of Angela's mind, the tension remained. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Suddenly, the captain's voice broke through the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a slight delay in our flight path due to weather conditions ahead. We appreciate your patience." The announcement only heightened the anxiety. Delays could mean more time for Marcus to execute whatever scheme he was planning. The whispers among passengers grew louder, with many speculating about what could unfold next. "Do you think he's really going to get her fired?" one passenger asked, glancing toward Marcus. "I hope not. She was just doing her job," another replied, clearly sympathetic to Angela. But the murmurs did little to ease Angela's worries. She focused on her duties, trying to remain professional even as her mind raced with possibilities. Every time she passed Marcus's seat, she felt his eyes boring into her, and the intensity of his gaze sent shivers down her spine. Marcus, on the other hand, felt invigorated by the whispers around him. He was well aware of the attention he was drawing. With every passing moment, he was plotting and planning, determined to ensure that Angela understood the price of defiance. He had connections, and he was ready to leverage them. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. A friend from his days in the corporate world, someone who had clout in the airline industry. With a few quick taps, he sent a message detailing the incident. "I need your help. A flight attendant has disrespected me on this flight. I want her off my back and dealt with." As he hit send, he leaned back in his seat with a satisfied smirk. The power he wielded through his connections was intoxicating. This wasn't just about him. It was about sending a message. Nobody would disrespect Marcus Wright and get away with it. Minutes turned into an hour, and the flight continued its slow journey through the sky. Angela tried to focus on the passengers who needed her, but every time she caught Marcus's eye, it was like a cold hand gripping her heart. She had to prepare herself for the fallout. Finally, the door to the cockpit opened, and the captain stepped out. His expression was serious, and it was clear that he had been informed about the situation. "I need to speak to the flight attendants in private," he said, casting a glance towards Angela. Angela's heart raced. Was this it? Were they going to pull her aside to tell her that Marcus had lodged a complaint? She exchanged worried glances with the other attendants, each of them silently wondering what this could mean. Once in the galley, the captain wasted no time. "Angela, I've just received a call from the corporate office regarding the situation with Marcus." His voice was low, serious. Angela felt a lump form in her throat. "What did they say?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They're aware of the incident. Marcus is a high-profile passenger, and they want to make sure everything is handled delicately. They've asked us to maintain a distance and keep an eye on the situation." A wave of frustration washed over her. So they're taking his side. I stood up for myself, and now I'm being told to step back. The captain nodded. "I understand how you feel, but we have to tread carefully. His influence can be powerful. We just need to ensure the flight remains calm and uneventful." Angela's heart sank. She felt betrayed, like her bravery was being punished. "But what about my dignity? What about the right to stand up to bullying?" The captain sighed, clearly conflicted. "I get it, Angela. But sometimes surviving is the best form of resistance. We need to prioritize the safety of all passengers." As they returned to the cabin, Angela felt a mix of anger and resignation. It was a harsh reality check. Standing up for herself didn't guarantee protection. It felt like she was being forced to choose between her dignity and her job. Meanwhile, Marcus was reveling in his success. He had made his move, and now it was just a waiting game. With every passing moment, he felt more empowered. The thrill of knowing he could bend the situation to his will filled him with a sense of satisfaction. But his sense of victory was short-lived. He overheard snippets of conversation between the flight attendants and realized they were on high alert. The attention and caution only fueled his resentment. He needed to escalate things further. He couldn't let this go. Marcus texted his corporate friend again, detailing the situation more explicitly. This flight attendant disrespected me, and I demand action. I want her disciplined. Now. His fingers moved swiftly, as if each tap of the screen solidified his grip on the situation. The response came almost instantly, assuring him that the matter would be handled. The assurance sent a wave of glee through Marcus. He felt like he was controlling the narrative, weaving a story where he was the hero. It was exhilarating. But as he sat back in his seat, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He glanced around the cabin, noting the hushed conversations and the furtive glances aimed his way. There was an undercurrent of tension that hinted at something brewing beneath the surface. The flight continued, and the passengers began to exchange stories about the incident. Some were vocal, expressing support for Angela, while others questioned Marcus's behavior. The divide was palpable. Angela, feeling the weight of the situation, tried to maintain her composure. She knew she had the support of some passengers, but the fear of losing her job loomed large. What if her stand against Marcus led to dire consequences? The clock continued to tick, each minute dragging on like an eternity. With every passing moment, the anticipation built. Would Marcus follow through on his threats? Would he succeed in ruining her career? Finally, as the flight approached its destination, the captain's voice echoed through the cabin once more. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing shortly. Please prepare for arrival." The airplane began its descent, and the cabin buzzed with anticipation. Angela's heart raced as she prepared for landing. She could feel the eyes of the passengers on her, and she wondered how many of them knew about the brewing storm between her and Marcus. The tension was almost tangible, a thick fog hanging in the air, waiting to burst. As the plane dipped lower, the light outside dimmed, casting shadows across the cabin. Angela's mind was racing. What would happen once they landed? Would Marcus carry out his threat? She had no way of knowing what kind of power he wielded, and that uncertainty gnawed at her. Meanwhile, Marcus sat with a calculated calm. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but on the outside, he presented a mask of control. He knew he was playing a dangerous game, but he thrived on that rush. The thought of getting back at Angela fueled his ambition. She had dared to stand up to him, and now he would show her the consequences of her actions. As the plane touched down, and the tires screeched against the tarmac, the passengers clapped, a sign of relief mixed with joy. But for Angela, the sound felt hollow. She felt a wave of dread wash over her. The moment of reckoning was close, and she could sense that Marcus was about to unleash something unexpected. Once the plane taxied to the gate, the seatbelt sign flickered off. The cabin erupted into a flurry of movement. Passengers gathered their belongings, chatting excitedly about their journey. But Angela remained still, her heart pounding in her chest. Marcus stood up, adjusting his jacket with an air of authority. He turned to face Angela, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "You did well, Angela," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You really showed me who's boss back there." The words hung in the air, sharp and biting. Angela felt her face flush with anger. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to maintain her composure. "I was just doing my job," she replied, her voice steady but low. "Your job, or your little power trip." Marcus leaned in closer, invading her personal space. "You think you can kick me off this flight and walk away unscathed? You have no idea who you're dealing with." Angela's heart raced as she stood her ground. "I won't let you intimidate me. I did what I thought was right. You can't bully me just because you have money." He chuckled, a dark sound that sent chills down her spine. "Oh, honey, this isn't about money. It's about respect. And trust me, you're going to learn that lesson the hard way." As the other passengers began to exit the plane, Angela felt increasingly isolated. She noticed some of them watching the confrontation unfold, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and she could feel the weight of their eyes on her. Would anyone step in? But no one did. The passengers filtered out, leaving only a few stragglers behind. It felt like a scene out of a movie. Her standing there, locked in a standoff with Marcus, who seemed more like a villain than a billionaire. Finally, one of the remaining passengers, a kind-looking older woman, approached Angela. "You did the right thing, dear. Don't let him scare you." Angela offered a grateful smile, her heart warming at the woman's support. But Marcus wasn't finished. "That's cute," he sneered, "but let's see how much support you get when I start making calls." The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. Angela felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized the implications of his threat. He had connections, and he wasn't afraid to use them. The thought of losing her job sent panic coursing through her veins. "Don't you dare threaten me," she said, her voice rising, finally breaking free from the fear that had been constraining her. "I did my job. If you think I'm going to back down, you're sorely mistaken." Marcus's expression shifted, his amusement replaced by something darker. "You think you can take me on? You're just a flight attendant. I'm a billionaire. The world works differently for people like me." Just then, the flight attendant supervisor, Rachel, stepped into the cabin, her presence instantly commanding attention. She surveyed the scene, her eyes narrowing as she took in the tension between Marcus and Angela. "Is everything okay here?" Rachel asked, her voice firm but cautious. Angela seized the opportunity. "No, it's not okay. He's threatening me because I did my job." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but Rachel held up her hand. "Let me handle this," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Rachel had seen many things in her years as a flight attendant, but this was different. Marcus was a high-profile passenger, but Angela was her employee. She had to protect her. "Sir," she addressed Marcus, her voice steady, "I need you to calm down. I understand that you're upset, but this is not the way to handle it." Marcus's eyes flickered with anger, but Rachel didn't back down. "Angela has every right to enforce the rules. We're not here to cater to bullies." The words were like a splash of cold water on Marcus's fire. He hesitated, the mask of control slipping momentarily. But only for a second. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. This will have consequences." Rachel took a step closer, her eyes locked on Marcus. "And what consequences would those be?" "I won't allow you to intimidate my staff. If you have a complaint, take it up with the airline, but don't think for a second that you can bully her." The tension in the cabin shifted, and Angela felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Rachel was standing up for her, and it felt like a shield against Marcus's threats. The atmosphere shifted once more, and Angela could sense the power dynamics tilting slightly in her favor. But Marcus was not one to back down easily. "You'll regret this," he warned, his voice low and menacing. "I have friends in high places. I'll make sure you both regret crossing me." As he turned on his heel, heading toward the exit, the weight of his threat lingered in the air. Angela's heart raced, but she forced herself to breathe deeply. She was terrified of the repercussions, but at the same time, a sense of strength bubbled within her. She had stood her ground, and that was something to be proud of. As the last of the passengers filed out of the cabin, Angela felt the weight of their gazes. Some looked sympathetic, while others appeared wary. But Rachel's presence made all the difference. "Let's talk in the office," she said, guiding Angela toward the rear of the plane. Once they were out of earshot, Rachel turned to Angela, her expression serious. "You did the right thing, Angela. It's important that we stand up to bullies, but we need to be prepared for any backlash." Angela nodded, her voice shaking slightly. "What if he follows through on his threats? What if I lose my job?" Rachel shook her head, her eyes firm. "We'll deal with that if it happens. For now, I want you to focus on your work. If he makes a complaint, we'll address it. Just remember, you have support. You're not alone in this." The reassurance helped soothe Angela's anxiety, but the fear still loomed in the background. She had never faced a confrontation like this, and the uncertainty of Marcus's next move weighed heavily on her. As they exited the plane, Angela took a moment to gather her thoughts. The airport was bustling with activity, but she felt a strange sense of detachment. It was as if the world was moving around her while she stood still, lost in the chaos of her emotions. The two women walked toward the terminal, and Angela couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus was still watching. The way he had spoken to her, his arrogance, his confidence, felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. She needed to stay alert. Rachel paused, turning to Angela with a serious look. "If he contacts the airline, we'll need to have a meeting. I'll stand by you, and I'll make sure they understand your side of the story. But you must document everything, every conversation, every interaction. That will help us." Angela nodded, determination slowly replacing her fear. "I will. I'm not going to let him win. I refuse to be a victim." As they entered the terminal, a sense of purpose washed over Angela. She was going to fight for herself, no matter what. She would not allow Marcus to control her life. The confrontation may have ended, but the battle was just beginning. Later that evening, as Angela prepared to head home, her phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen and her heart dropped. It was a message from Marcus. "You think this is over? Just wait. I always get what I want."